There have been some interesting conversations happening recently about lineage and how lineage is an expression of patriarchy. And lineage held by monks, tantric lineages held by monks have nothing to do with us today and nothing to do with the sexual expression of Tantra. And I think that's probably true depending on the lineage of Tantra that you practice under. A lot of people practicing Tantra aren't actually practicing under a lineage, so I don't really think they know what they're talking about. But for those of us who do practice under a lineage, we know how important the lineage actually is. And we understand how the wisdom and the intelligence of Tantra is passed through, transmitted through that lineage. And my lineage in particular was founded by the Black Dakini, Naguma. Naguma and her sister in practice, Sukhasiddhi. And Naguma was very specific about her teachings. She was very specific about how she wanted them to be transmitted for the first 7 generations to ensure that they were not codified by monks, to ensure that they kept the natural potency and magic and intelligence without it being impeded or obstructed by men who have fear of sex or avoid sexuality. And so she instructed that her teachings could only be passed for 7 generations, could only be passed from one teacher to one student, whispered in their ear. So her teachings were not available for a multitude of people originally. Her teachings were available for one, well, maybe some of her teachings were, but the core, the essence, the foundation of her teachings were transmitted from one teacher to one student, whispered in their ear for 7 generations. And our lineage, the Shankvakagyu lineage, is called both the Dakini lineage as well as the whispered lineage. It is an oral tradition, and that is one of the reasons why. It was teachings were literally whispered in the student's ear for 7 generations. The teachings that I practice and we share at the Institute are rooted in the Tibetan 5-element teachings, which were originally from the Bon tradition, but were woven into the Buddhist tradition at several different points throughout the introduction of Buddhism into Tibet. And the teachings that we share through the Institute also include the sexual application of the 5 elements. They include the core instructions, which have been transmitted through millennia, for how to apply these 5-element practices, both sexually and non-sexually, for the purpose of healing, regeneration, realization, and spiritual growth. That is the purpose. And these teachings were whispered from the head of the lineage, Kalu Rinpoche, not the current Kalu Rinpoche. Hey, Kalu, not you, predecessor. The previous Kalu Rinpoche shared these teachings, the sexual and non-sexual teachings of the Tibetan 5 elements, to my Lama, Lama Tashi, over 40 years ago. And Lama Tashi whispered them in secret to his students on Kauai for several years. And then at a certain point, Lama Tashi gave myself and a few others permission to carry these teachings out into Western society to support us all in healing, connection, liberation, healing from trauma, like so much trauma in Western society, particularly around sexuality, and help us reconnect with a vibrant, holistic life that includes sexuality, that includes spirituality, that includes connection to our bodies and our environment and the elements. So these teachings were transmitted according to the lineage, whispered, and then whispered to me, and then given permission to bring out into modern society for the purpose of improving society. And I hope that we have done that. I hope that has occurred, and I hope that it continues to occur. But this conversation about lineage being patriarchal, absolutely, it could have been, and it certainly has been, but not all lineages have started with men. There are lineages that have been rooted in the divine wisdom and the divine intelligence of the embodied feminine, and that is the lineage under which we practice, the lineage of the Black Dakini.